What's poppin', everyone? It's Venomous back with Game 2 of a best of 5 between the Prince of Marines, Maru of Jin Air, formerly of Prime. He is facing off against Showtime, the German player in the top left here. A very solid Protoss. Notice that Showtime is building his first gateway by this little ledge. This is very good because it can prevent Reapers from getting in if you build another building right here. Sometimes you can hide tech, like here or here too, because this map is actually really good for hiding tech. There's lots of good spots, because if Terran scans the main, there's a little pocket over here, there's this little cutesy spot, and then this corner. Obviously on this map, this spot is very good for dropping. This top area of the natural is good for dropping. This is a very good Terran map, especially against Zerg. But there is no Zerg in this game. This is game 2 of a TVP between Maru and Showtime. Maru took game 1 with his patented "I'm just going to out multitask you" strategy. Gotta love that. Maru is kind of this guy who just says, "I'm just going to make Marine Marauder with Medivacs and drop you into oblivion, and you're not going to have the multitask to keep up." And Maru is actually so good at the game that he can do that, and that can be his strategy in almost every single matchup. That's what he does for Zerg. Oftentimes in his TVT, he's playing very drop heavy, and of course versus Protoss, he pretty much just multi-prong drop harassed that entire game 1. And Showtime is a very good player, and it's not one of those games where one player who gets harassed just gets their doors blown off and it's not even close. Showtime held in there for a pretty damn long time. But Maru is the kind of player who will take little damage every single time. But because his APM is so high and he can do so many different things at once, because you're taking a little bit of damage constantly at multiple locations, it adds up. And that's what we saw for Showtime. He got little bits and pieces, and then eventually he took a couple bad chunks. And Maru expanded and upgraded behind all of his drop aggression. Maru's going to run in here. He's going to see the Robo, which is nice. Oftentimes whenever you see the Robo, you can deduce that it's not Stargate. Very often Protoss players, especially in this matchup, after they build their Cybercore, will go down one tech path as far as Twilight, Stargate, or what's the other one? Robo, of course. Sometimes you see them mix in a Twilight because of Adepts. There's been this interesting trend in Legacy of the Void where, since Warp Gate All-Ins kind of have been fundamentally changed in the sense of it's not so much about building a lot of gateways, rushing out Warp Gate, and hiding a pylon because of the way that Warpin has been changed onto pylons, as we see a Widow Mine drop coming here for Maru. It's more about oftentimes getting out warp prisms, because the warp in time hasn't really been altered on the warp prism like it was on a normal proxy pylon. So that means that warp gate all-ins now, often the builds have been adapted for that little wrinkle. Nice Widow Mine there at the third base for Maru. Observer out here for Showtime in the main, and Maru drops, he burrows the mine, and he only gets one probe, or I guess he got two. And she's kiting back here, and he does a little bit of damage there, does Maru, but Showtime was there, he had an observer, so pretty inconsequential. But Maru does have a Liberator up here. He's not the type to just harass in one spot. Observer out here. This is great stuff from Showtime. Notice he has 4 observers out already. That's a huge deal. Last game he got the early Warp Prism, and I feel like because he didn't make a bunch of observers, he was kind of playing from behind for a lot of the game because he was always caught off guard. And it is a Liberator, so you're always going to take a little bit of damage. You can never actually mitigate all the damage from a Liberator, no matter how good you are, even Showtime. But he does clean up that Liberator. Colossus on the way for Showtime. And Maru is going to drop off these Marines here. It's an interesting deviation that we see. Instead of going for one Observer and then a Warp Prism Disruptor into Colossi, Showtime's saying, I'll make a lot of Observers so I'm safe. And we see that they're about even in supply. He's taken significantly less damage this game to the drops. And he's taking into Colossi here, chronoing both the Colossi and the Extended Thermal Lance. So great play here from Showtime, kind of sealing up the cracks so far. Notice Maru has gone for a tank. This is a great move. Getting one tank in this matchup is extraordinarily useful for defense. Maru, of course, is getting +1 as well. He's also researching Stim Pack and Combat Shields. Kills an Observer there as he loads up a drop. You might be asking, Wiley, why doesn't Maru have Stim Pack? The answer is that he went for fast Medevac tech and fast Widow Mine drop. The Widow Mines cost gas, so whenever you go for early units that cost gas, it delays your tech. So Protoss players who lose to Widow Mine drops and feel really irritated, as we see an Observer placed beautifully, sees this drop, so this is a good opportunity for Showtime here. But Maru unloads at a very safe location, doesn't get greedy, and he drops. Showtime throws down 2 force fields, but he doesn't really have a very big army. Where is his army? He really just has 1 Colossi. The pylon goes down. Maru is loading up another drop in his main, but he's aggressing onto the 3rd, and here's another Colossus, and once you get 2 Colossus with Thermal Lance, you can fight pretty well. But Maru is going to utilize his multitask, fly into the main, but Showtime had a beautifully placed Mothership Core, and some Stalkers as well. So these Marauders do bonus damage to Armored, and they absolutely eat through Structures and Stalkers, especially whenever you have an upgrade advantage. Of course, Maru does have +1. That's actually a pretty big deal, because the faster that units attack, the more important upgrades are. And of course, Marines and Marauders attack very quickly, so do Zerglings. More drops being queued up here because it's Maru. Exciting stuff. Flying into the main here is Maru. 12 workers have been killed by the Prince of Marines. He's going to kite back. Blink is being researched here. Showtime is starting to take damage. Maru is dropping at multiple locations. One brilliant thing that Maru does is he never gives up on drops. Notice how as soon as Showtime goes over and defends, Maru picks up. He's not the type of person who just wastes units. Oftentimes Terran players, they'll do their drop, but after it gets snuffed out, they'll just kind of say, oh, it's dead, and then they'll go back to macroing. Maru actually has so much APM and such excellent multitasking that he can micro all these drops and keep up a great economy as he drops a shitload of mules. And this is actually going to be sickening for you people who don't realize how good mules are. Watch this income tab. Watch how the Terran's minerals shoot up. And this is just going to give him the ability to... Oh, we see a blink here. As Maru drops all the units, he thought that this medevac was going to fall. It just had 6 HP, and he does lose the medevac, and Showtime does end up getting the units, but a ton of income here for Maru, and he thinks about flying as he does have a medevac by the natural. This is one thing about Maru, is he never gives up on his drops, so after he saves them, he'll just fly them over, and that means that there are perpetual threats. Anytime you want to move out of your base as Protoss, oh, Maru has a drop over there. Notice this, he scans and sees, oh, do you have any units? And even though he has units, Maru is so brazen and confident that he flies over there with the medevac anyway. And thankfully he doesn't lose it, as it was kind of low. Notice Maru is just continuing to load up units into his medevacs here and aggress. He's not really doing a whole lot of walking his army out. He's a turret here, nice SimCity with the tank. So even if he tries to run DTs in here, Showtime, he'll just get obliterated by the tank. This is one thing that Maru does very well, is he SimCities with his depots when appropriate. Scans into the natural here, and Maru fakes him out with a couple of fake medis. Notice there is an OBS over here if we go to Showtime's vision. Oh wow, big drop over here onto the 3rd. Showtime does have a disruptor, but drops onto the Colossi. Maru just goes completely balls in. He's just going for it, absolutely, and mows down the pylon, mows down the mothership core. This is just an absurd display of confidence. This is like a 15-minute long, flawless Eddie Van Halen guitar solo. And right there, that was like that cute part of Eruption that everybody likes. And he's going to drop down into the third base and start to do damage to the probe, start to do damage to the Nexus. Notice these mines might get big hits. And Showtime GG's, I call it Spanish Fly. That was game 2 of the best of 5. Make sure you subscribe. Bars.